Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to bake a cake. I'm going to be showing you how to bake a cake. So just follow the process.
The first thing to do is to mix the sugar and the butter together. So for this project I'm using 1500 grams of butter. Each of the sachet is 250 grams, so I'm going to use 6 sachets. So I'm using 6 sachets of this butter. So I'm putting the butter already into the mixing bowl. The next thing to do is to add sugar into the butter. I'm using 1200 grams of sugar. This container is 100 grams, so I'm adding 12 of that container into the mixing bowl. Now it's time to mix the butter and sugar together. Now I had to mix it in twos. So this is the first set. I'm already mixing it together. It takes time for butter and sugar to mix together. It took me 1 hour to mix it together. So keep on mixing until your mixture is fluffy. You know if your mixture is fluffy if you put it in a spoon and then it drops quickly. That means you've actually mixed it well. So now I'm ready to mix the second set. I'm just going to do it the same way, following the same process. And yes, make sure it's fluffy. Now it's time to break the eggs. I'm using 36 pieces of egg for this project. So I'm just going to go ahead and break the egg, then I'll mix them together. Now I'm mixing it with a canister and I'm going to mix it until everything is evenly distributed and very clear. Now it's time to mix the mixture of butter and sugar with the egg that I've already mixed. So I'm putting the mixture of the butter and sugar into another bowl. Now it's time to add the whisked egg into the mixture of butter and sugar. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to mix it in twos. So the container containing the egg is calibrated. So I'm just going to carefully measure up or pour half of it into this mixture, and then I'll do the other half right after. going to carefully pour it, making sure that I don't exceed the calibration. Right after that, I'll mix it again with the mixer. I'll mix it and make sure that everything is even. So I'm done mixing. The next thing to do is to add flour, which I'm going to do right away. So it's necessary for us to sieve the flour, but I found out that it's better for me to measure the flour before I sieve it. So I'm not going to measure the flour. I'm using 1,500 grams of flour, so I'll just use my container, which is 100 grams, to measure out 15 cups, which should turn to 1,500, which should be 1,500 grams. So it's necessary for us to sieve our flour because our flours could have crumbs and you need to even it out. Now I'm adding the flour to the mixture of the butter, sugar and egg. So I'm going to add it little by little and I'm going to mix it in one direction. Next is to add our baking powder, and the calculation I use for 140 grams of flour, you need 8 spoons of baking powder. So since I'm using 1,500 grams of flour, that gave me 10.7 spoons. So I'll just add 10 spoons of baking powder and another spoon that is not so full. The brandy, and use the calculation of a large cake, which needs 9 spoons of brandy. So I am using 27 spoons of brandy for this project. The next thing I'm adding is vanilla, and I'm adding my vanilla to taste. So I chose to add 3 cupfuls of vanilla flavor. The next I'm going to add is nutmeg. Nutmeg has a distinctive aroma, and that's the reason why I love adding it to my cake. So once I'm done adding it, I'm going to mix everything together. Now I'm going to show you how to prepare your baking pan. You add butter to your baking pan. Then you actually evenly distribute it over the baking pan. You spread it around the baking pan to all the corners of the baking pan. It is very essential so that your cake would come out easily when you are done baking. The next thing to do is to add flour. So you put some amount of flour into the baking pan and spread it round about the whole baking pan to all the corners of the baking pan before you actually bring out the remaining flour. So the flour will have stuck to the butter, and this is what you have. So I'll just go ahead and do the same for the remaining baking pans. Now I'm about to pour the batter into the baking pan. So that's it. So I'm just going to pour it, but I'm going to make sure that I don't make it full, so that it's, because the cake will eventually rise. So I'm just going to mix it for the last time before I go ahead and pour it. So I'll just make sure that the batter is just up to 2/3 of the baking pan, so that we can allow it to rise. So I'll just follow the process for the second part. Now I have poured my batter into the baking pan. Okay, so our cake is ready, and our first set of cake is ready, and this is our second set of cake. And I'm just going to show you how to make sure that your cake is done. You put your knife into the baking pan containing the cake, and if it comes out clean, that means it's actually done. So we can bring out our cake from the oven now. So I'm putting the next set into the oven, and I'm bringing out the previous set. So I had to cut over the top of this one. So I'm bringing out the one I put inside, and I'm putting the last set. This is the last set of cake I'm baking. I actually was mindful of the heat because I found out that my cake was burning, so I used 30 minutes to bake this cake, and it actually came out unburnt. So I actually followed the process of testing it, and as you can see, I put a knife inside it and it came out clean. So it actually came out well, and it was unburnt. I spent 30 minutes to bake the cake. Now I can bring out the cake from the baking pan. So this is our cake. We are done baking our cakes, and this is what we have. I just going to bring out the last set from the baking pan, and I actually baked 7 cakes, 1 big cake and 6 small cakes. So these are our cakes. That's it. So please, if you find this tutorial helpful, do well to like, share and subscribe on this channel. Till I see you next time, bringing you another video.
How you doing?
Cake. I don't chop cake tire. See cake. Ooh. See but actually one is not good for you to bake cake when you are hungry. I can assure you, you will not eat any other thing. Scarlett was sweating like sweater. Say cheese.
I won't say cheese.